Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 8th, 2024 special business meeting of the Olympia City Council. For the record, all council members are present. So the purpose of this evening's meeting is it is a special meeting because we will be appointing our new council member for position 6, which was formerly my seat on the council. So this evening we'll be having a presentation on the overview of the ranked choice voting process, which you will hear shortly, to explain exactly how we'll be selecting the appointee for this evening. So with that, I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is adopted. So our first business item this evening is an overview and approval of the ranked choice voting process for the purpose of appointing a council member to fill the unexpired term of position number 6. So we will hear from Jack Mongan, who is the Thurston County Auditor's Office election technician, who will be explaining the process of how we will be conducting this evening's election to select our appointee. Oh.
Mayor Payne, council members.
Thank you, Kelly.
Hi. For the record, my name is Kelly Curtis-Brasshead, Strategic Communications Director. As you know, council expressed interest in using ranked choice voting as part of your process for appointing a new council member. Tonight you'll receive an overview of the ranked choice voting process, and you'll need to move to accept the use of the process to help you in determining a candidate to fill position 6. I am so very grateful to Thurston County Auditor Mary Hall for her support in our efforts to make this possible. In 2021, Auditor Hall oversaw the ranked choice voting process for the council appointment process then. Unfortunately, Auditor Hall was out of town and could not be here for tonight's process, but she left us in the very capable hands of election technician Jack Mongan from the Auditor's Office, who will go over ranked choice voting with you now, and should you vote to accept its use, will administer the process when it's time to vote. We're also fortunate to have the support of Fairfield, Washington in the process as well. I'm going to turn it over to Jack Mongan for the overview. And thank you. I'm going to stay here and drive some machines.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And I'd like to thank the mayor, the city council, and staff for having me here tonight to do this. So my name is Jack Mongan. I work for the Thurston County Auditor's Office as an election technician. Today I will also be working with Chris Mason, who is a volunteer from Fairfield, Washington. Now last November, 16,110 voters voted to select their mayor in the city of Olympia. Tonight, 6 people will be voting to select the city council member. Because of the difference in those votes, we will be conducting this election by hand. We're going to be using a modified ranked choice voting process that's been specially designed to work in small groups like the group that we have tonight. Since this is the second time the city of Olympia has used this process, I know everyone here tonight has either voted or has been voted upon in this process before. So you're all very familiar, but with those that may be the first time being introduced to this concept, we're just going to watch a very short video just to go over the basics of what ranked choice voting looks like.
Pick your favorite color.
The ranked choice voting way.
Instead of voting for just one color, you get to rank your top 3.
Well, purple is the best, but if I can't have purple, I want blue. And if neither of those wins, I guess I can live with orange.
Now, let's count up everybody's votes.
Under ranked choice voting rules, it's not enough just to get the most votes. You need a majority.
More than 50% of the votes.
Purple's ahead, but it has only 7 votes.
It needs at least 11 to win.
So we eliminate the color in last place.
Sorry, Orange fans, we're going to your second choice.
2 more for green.
1 for purple.
But no color has 11 votes yet.
Still no majority.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye, blue.
1 more for purple,
4 for green.
and we have a winner.
The ranked choice voting way.
This was an excellent short video put together by the Minnesota Public Radio explaining their process. In Minnesota, they've been using it in cities, Minneapolis specifically, for a long time now. And they've done a great job in helping us election administrators with ways to explain this to the public. So, next we're going to be looking at what our ballot looks like tonight. All of you should have a copy of your ballot here, and I'm just going to give you some quick instructions about how you fill it out for later today. This is not a secret ballot, so I do need all of you to print your name on the top there so we can track these votes. Since I believe 2 members have dropped out, unless any more have dropped out, we are going to be ranking between first and fourth preference on the ballot. So you'll be voting for one person as your first choice, a different person as your second, then your third, and then your fourth. So you must vote for all 4 candidates. After you have voted and all the ballots have been completed, they will be turned into me over here at the ballot counting table. After I have all the ballots, we're going to enter this into the tabulation sheet. And I'm just going to quick show the tabulation sheet. What we're going to do, I'm going to read those ballots, and Chris will enter them into the tabulation sheet. We'll verify that all have been entered in correctly, and then we're going to go to the round 1 of voting. On the round there, we're going to be looking to see if any of the candidates in the first round reach that majority support. That means that they're going to need 3 votes to win. So they'll need, 4 votes to win with a majority. It'd be 4 votes if there's 4 voters, right? If there's 4 people voting and there's
6 people voting, 4 candidates, 3 to win.
Wouldn't that just be 50%?
7 members of the council, so 4.
Yeah, sorry, that was, the math from before when the numbers were changing, yes. So it will need 4 votes majority to win for tonight. Now, if there, in the first round, if there isn't that majority that we have there, the candidate that has the least support would be removed. And candidates with the least support would continue to be removed until one member has that majority support. So that's a process that may happen and would continue to happening until we receive that majority support. Now, in a race with 16,000 voters, it's uncommon to have a tie. But in a race with 6 voters, it's much more likely. Which is why, for this election, if 2 candidates are tied in any of these rounds, we're going to be looking at their overall preference from all ballots. An easy way to put this is if there's a tie between 2 candidates and who should be removed, we're looking at the candidate that has the least support from the voting members, and that candidate would be removed first. It would be recounted again, and then we'd go to the next step if necessary. Now, even with a small amount of people voting, even with this average we can use to decide who to remove, it is possible we end up with a complete tie. Now, it's up to the council how you want to proceed. Our procedures say just decided by lot. I brought some dice and some cards with me if we want to do a random chance game that way, but I leave it up to the council to decide how to decide randomly who to select. Before we move on, is there any questions I can answer about any step of this process?
Councilmember Gilman.
Good. So I just want to check, if we agree to the process, are we bound to randomly settling a tie, or might we go into executive session and debate how to make that decision, having used this ranked choice up to that point?
So, Councilmember Gilman, the answer is, in short, yes, we could choose to do that. The other option is to use the sum total that column that we had in the application process, to use that sum column to break the tie as well. Councilmember Cooper.
Yeah, I'll just say my first experience doing this when we chose Councilmember Hankins, my least favorite quote in the paper was somebody suggesting that we flip a coin to break the tie on the first round of motions. And my suggestion would be that we owe it to the the voters of Olympia to keep going in and out of executive session until we have a majority and we don't use a random chance, if at all possible. I'm here for the long haul tonight if we need to.
Agreed. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I do have one question for you, Jack. Is it okay for us to strike the two candidates that we know are withdrawn from our ballots?
Yep. If you wish to strike them from there, we would only we would only count the votes on those remaining 4 candidates.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Parsley.
Are we ready for a motion?
Before we do a motion, I wanted to just open it up for a conversation. Last week rather, when we approved this process, we moved to separate the candidates up into 2 panels of interviewees. So now that we have 2 folks withdrawn, and we only have 4 candidates to interview tonight, I'd like to revisit that discussion and see where we all are. Councilmember Madrone.
I support bringing everybody on to one panel.
All right, well, we can make sure that we incorporate that into our motion. So with that, I need a motion to accept the process of ranked choice voting for the purpose of appointing a council member to fill the city council position number 6 vacancy, with interviewing 4 candidates on 1 panel. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have our 4 candidates waiting in another room at the moment. So at this time, if I could just get a thumbs up from our council members. You want to discuss questions?
We haven't approved them yet.
Oh, well, if you would like to do that. I don't have that as part of my outline to do that, but sure, we can open it up and discuss questions if you like. Do you have a question?
Wouldn't that be weird if I didn't? I just wanted to note that for questions on specific issues, myself, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen, and Councilmember Cooper worked on this, and we were supposed to bring 3 forward, and we couldn't decide, so we brought 4 plus 1 in case it was needed. So I wanted to flag that for folks, and we didn't even break down among the 3 of us who would ask the extra one. But I'm also looking at the one at the back on the top, what 3 issues are critical for the city of Olympia to address. And I feel like we asked that in their applications. And so we could ask again. It's always interesting to hear what people say on paper and what they say on the fly, but we could also take that one off to make up for the extra one that came from our little group.
Could you identify what the extra, you're saying 5.5? Okay, we should.
Oh, well, I'm saying that 5.1 through 5.4 already incorporates 1 more than we had planned. There's an additional question. We might want to incorporate that. We might not want to. But what I'm suggesting is that because we already brought 4 forward, 4 plus 1 if we want it, then, this one seems to be redundant to what we've already asked the candidates.
Okay, Councilmember Parsley.
I think Councilmember Madrone is right. I think 6-2 we can get rid of because we have a closing question with you. I would ask if we have 5 here, I'd rather have us say we're going to do 4 because the extra one, maybe we can come back. But, going into this, it would be nice to know which of those 4 and just going forward, I guess.
Agreed, and there's 4 candidates, so it just makes sense to do it that way. I'm fine with striking 6.2. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. And 5.5 was my ability to wait until today to decide my question, because I'm going to be doing 5.2, so we can strike that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on Councilmember Gilman?
So I didn't hear who's doing 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3, or 5.1, 3, and 4, whatever we're doing here.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. So my understanding is 5.1 will be Councilmember Madrone, 5.2 Councilmember Cooper, and 5.3 and 5.4 is myself. All right, thanks.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns on questions? All right, so with that, we have our questions. Councilmember Parsley.
Have we determined the order? Because the first person has to go first, and then we're going to rotate through. How are we going to do a coin flip for who's chosen to go first the first time?
Yes, so essentially what we'll do is whomever is seated in each seat, we will start in a row, starting from this end.
Okay.
And then Mayor Pro Tem will keep track, and we will alternate
Thank you.
who answers the question.
Thank you.
Yes. And 2 minutes for answering those questions. Are we all good? Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right. So we do have our 4 candidates waiting for us. We do have an additional seat at the table, so if we could remove that as to not confuse the candidates, that would be great. And so we will invite them into the room, and we will get started with our process momentarily.
They were in separate rooms, so Debbie's getting in a group.
All right, well, good evening. Thank you all so much for taking the time to apply for the vacancy for position 6 and for being here this evening. I'm Mayor Dante Payne, and we'll just take a moment so we can all introduce ourselves to our interview panel this evening. Mayor Pro Tem.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Huynh. I use she, her pronouns. I am pleased to be Mayor Pro Tem Huynh. Thank you so much for spending this part of your evening with us tonight. We really enjoyed reading through your thoughtful applications and look forward to what you have to say.
Danny Madrone.
Clark Gilman.
Lisa Parsley?
Jim Cooper, and I use he, him pronouns, and thank you very much for applying.
Yes, so we appreciate your ability to be flexible with us. As I'm sure you've probably seen, there were 2 additional applicants that were initially supposed to join you this evening. So I know it's not a big inconvenience, but it is a change, especially when you're in a process like this. And so I want to acknowledge what that must be doing for you in this particular moment. So I just want to hold space for that and acknowledge it. The other thing that I just want to be sure that you are aware of is that as we will take turns asking questions this evening, each council member will have 1 or 2 questions to ask of each of you. We will rotate who goes first. You will have 2 minutes to answer each question. And at the conclusion of our interview process, we may choose to go into executive session to discuss your qualifications. No decisions will be made in that session, just to be clear. So we will be using a ranked choice voting process. So if you're not familiar with that, the candidate that receives the majority of votes, we will essentially rank you and vote for each of you as our first choice, second choice, third choice, and fourth choice. The candidate that receives the most votes is not necessarily declared a winner. It just depends on other qualifications that we are also looking for in this process as a council. But we do want to make sure that you are somewhat familiar with this process, which is why we mentioned it to the public earlier in the meeting, and we're discussing the process now. In the event that there is a tie, we will discuss how we will handle that situation in the executive session and make our determination at that point. So with that, do any of you have any questions on process? Yes. Yes, and please make sure you press your mic so that those in and outside of the room can hear you. So the Mayor Pro Tem will be keeping the time, so you can look to Mayor Pro Tem Huynh as an indicator that your 2 minutes is up. And there's also a clock up there as well. Wow, I didn't know we were going public comment style on our candidates tonight, but okay. So yes, there's a clock up there as well, but you can also look to the Mayor Pro Tem as an indicator that your time is up. And please feel free to, if you're mid-sentence, to wrap up and finish your thoughts. Don't feel like you need to cut yourself off right at 2 minutes. Yes, and feel free to finish your sentence. So with that, we will go ahead and get started with our first question, and that is to our candidate, Kelsey Hulse. Would you please introduce yourself to us and share with us why you want to serve on the City Council and what skills and knowledge you bring?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members who may be watching us. My name is Kelsey Hulse, and I'm a resident of Olympia's West Side. I live with my partner and 2 charming doggos over on that delightful portion of Olympia. Professionally, I'm a vice president of government relations for Strategies 360. I represent clients before the state legislature, specializing in public clients like cities, counties, and transit agencies. Outside of work, I'm proud to serve on the board of the Thurston County Chamber of Commerce and as the board treasurer for the Nisqually Land Trust. I recently wrapped up my 2nd term on the board for the Community Foundation of South Puget Sound and my 1st year on Olympia's Salary Commission. I'm running for city council because I love Olympia, and I'm really excited about its future. I'm privileged to have worked in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors here in Olympia, giving me a broad perspective on the needs of our shared community. I come to this opportunity having spent the last 7 years working in government relations, getting the opportunity to observe and learn from municipal governments across Western Washington. During my 6 years working with Puget Sound Energy, part of my work included representing the utility on the Thurston climate mitigation and adaptation planning efforts. My perspective will make me an effective partner as we continue to deliver world-class utility services and rise to meet the challenges of climate change. I've followed the good work the City Council has done to address our housing and homelessness crisis. The city's made great progress developing coalitions, identifying resources, and moving projects forward. However, there's still much work to be done, and my passion for meeting the housing needs of our community will help us engage more partners in that work and maintain a sense of urgency as long as necessary. My existing connections to partner jurisdictions, critical organizations, and across our community will bring more voices to the table and solutions and allow me to hit the ground running as your new council partner. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Kelsey. Up next, we have Carol Richmond.
To answer the same question?
Yes, I can repeat the question. Please introduce yourself and share with us why you want to serve on the City Council and what skills and knowledge you bring.
So my name is Carol Richmond, and I am a retired policy analyst. I worked for the state of Washington for about 21 years and worked in several different agencies during that time in policy, doing policy research and analysis, doing a lot of writing, and also worked for the legislature. So drafted bills. It was a wonderful job that I enjoyed very much. And when I left state government about 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to volunteer for something local. And I've been very interested in climate change for a long time, ever since I found out about climate change, actually. So started volunteering with the Thurston Climate Action Team, and found out about the convergence of land use and climate in that process, and that's how I got into land use, or became interested in land use. And from there on, I mean, I thought it was just a very exciting opportunity, to learn about urban design and architecture, things that I had always been interested in, but had never been able to actually get involved in. So I started educating myself. I went to conferences and kind of caught the bug and decided to apply for the Planning Commission. And when I did succeed after a couple of attempts, I've been with the Planning Commission for about 10 years now, almost 10 years. And I'm passionate about policy, including land use, including all kinds of things. I started, my background is in political science, and my master's degree is in forest policy, natural resources. So I have skills in policy research and analysis, and I think I already covered that. But I'm passionate about all kinds of policy. It's what I think about all the time, so I'm probably a very boring person to be around, but that, it's kind of what I like to think about. So what I bring is kind of a big picture perspective. Has it been 2 minutes already? Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I had
Carol,
Yes.
that's all right. Yeah, we've reached your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that 2 minutes goes fast.
Yes, it does.
So next, we have Robert Vanderpool.
Mayor, can I just point out, it's the second ding, so the first ding is 30 seconds
Yes.
left.
I didn't hear
The
it.
second one will be your end.
Your indicate. Yep. Thank you, Councilmember Cooper. Robert, would you please introduce yourself and share with us why you want to serve on the City Council and what skills and knowledge you bring?
Of course, thank you. I want to be on the Olympia City Council because I believe that our government can produce groundbreaking policies and achieve objectives and improve the quality of life for current and future Olympians. I don't see public service is an affluent pastime. I'm running because I believe in good governance. It was the Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis, who created the term laboratories of democracy. The concept that government can test and experiment policy on the local level to improve our democratic systems. I am the descendant of Irish and German immigrants and poor West Virginia union coal workers. I was born in historically underserved Baltimore. From age 7, I was raised by a single mother in a poor farming and Rust Belt, Ohio community. After high school, I worked and paid for my education class by class. After a 7-year run from community college to my master's in public administration, I'm a renter. I make less than $40,000 a year in income. I travel by bus, bicycle, and walk. This allows me direct feedback from the public, such as the Olympian who struggles to travel across town because the sidewalks are not ADA compatible, or the elder I spoke with at Saturday's farmer's market who told me it took them 4 hours to travel across town to their doctor's appointment because of our car-centric development model. These are the underserved Olympians that every day rely on local government to be there for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Up next, we have Amna. Would you please introduce yourself and share with us why you want to serve on the City Council and what skills and knowledge you bring?
Hi, my name is Amna Kazi. I'm a physician by profession, and I also did my hospital administration from Cornell. I have been involved on a local level since 7 to 8 years. I served as the commissioner for the Los Angeles, and then I moved to Olympia, and I'm serving as a Serve Washington here for the last 6 months. I believe that nobody has a magic wand and they can make things happen. If I become the council member, I would like to work with the other council members of the team that they can provide me a platform as a woman of color, as probably the first Muslim woman to be sitting on the council, bringing the voices that are never heard before. And I have specific skills, knowledge, and professional expertise, and my background equips me to contribute meaningful to this city. I also see running for council member as a way to encourage civic engagement and participation. I want to inspire others to become involved in a democratic process, and I want to be that voice that can bring the change, that can bring the people, and that can make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Amna. Okay, so with that, we will move on to our next question, which will be asked of you by Councilmember Parsley, beginning with Carol Richmond.
Yeah, I was going to confirm that. Thank you, Mayor. Each of you comes from a constituency, from an interest group. So we have to acknowledge that, all of us do. My question is, how will you reconcile that constituent's desires and goals with the broader goals and needs of our city and community? Because we have to represent everybody. So how will you do that?
When you say constituent, what do you mean exactly?
Constituency, it could be
Your identity? Or,
identity,
okay.
Political, it can be,
Yeah.
you know, a part of the community that you identify with.
Okay, okay. The way I normally handle that is I listen to people. I listen to all kinds of people, regardless of background. And you just have to really take in what is being said. You have to understand where people's experiences, to the extent you can, and ask questions if you don't understand what their concerns are. Be empathetic, and our responsibility as council members or as any member of government is to listen to the public and to listen to individuals and to citizens. And I don't actually place people in their groups. I mean, I register that, but that might not be their concern. at all. It might be, you just have to listen to what they're expressing. And to the extent that their background has an effect on what they're saying, then you talk about that. I mean, if their concern is their identity or their place in the community, then that's the discussion, and you just have that discussion, I mean, yeah. But I think tolerance, empathy, and openness, I guess, are the values I would bring.
Do you need me to repeat that, Robert?
Yes. That'd be great.
Okay. Each of us comes from a constituency or interest group. How will you reconcile that constituency's desires and goals with the broader goals and needs of the city and the community?
Well, I believe that there is wisdom in the public life. I believe that there are truths hearing public feedback, that qualitative feedback in public form is important. I do, however, understand that policy is almost never direct route from being written to approved. And so in a lot of ways, I believe that because of that, it requires negotiations in the art of relationships, human relationships. And so in a lot of ways, there will be conflicting views. There'll be issues that the public does not agree upon. There'll be friends of mine or colleagues of mine who will want me to vote on certain issues a certain way. And I have to balance that. I have to balance that because, like the city council, certain members will have different policy perspectives and different lived experiences. And that produces variations in deliberations. And of course, that deliberation makes better policy.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good, thank you. I'll be very precise in this. We have 75,000 residents living in the city of Olympia, and I'm being one of the people who represent the minorities. So my goal has always been to start on a local level and to be the voice. So if I am the council member for my constituents or the people I'm around, we have to divide them into groups, and that groups should be brought on the table. So meaning civic engagement, bringing the people on the round table, addressing the issues, cultivate a culture and a climate where I can go and talk to my council member and tell him this is my problem. And the only way forward for this is round table communication between the council members, between the Olympia Police Department. So we created these round tables on a monthly basis, and this is how we know that what community wants and what are we offering. This is the only way forward to bring the communities together and to know what people are going through and how we can address their issues to cultivate that climate. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. I think it's always important to acknowledge your bias and acknowledge your position, where you're coming from, how you might tend to think or act or react to the things around you. I've been really fortunate with some of my previous employers as well as some of my board service to have quite a bit of unconscious bias training, which I think has been really helpful to me in becoming more self-aware and acknowledging all of those things. I'll share that in 2016, I ran for office, and I was very dismayed to discover that there were some groups, organizations in this community that had no interest in engaging with me whatsoever. Didn't want to have a conversation, didn't want to meet me. So following my campaign, I made it my mission to get in front of those folks, to talk to them, to engage. And in fact, I ended up serving for a couple of years on a political action committee that had refused to meet or interview with me previously. Because I think when we look at the challenges that face our community, they are so complex and they are so broad that we really need everyone's oar in the water, ideally pulling in the same direction. So I've made it my goal and my mission to reach out to folks who may disagree with me, come from a different perspective, have a different idea of how to solve a problem, to really see if there isn't some common ground. And I've found that almost always there is. And if you start there, start to build some trust, there's a lot of great work that can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so our next question will come from Councilmember Gilman.
Great, and we're starting with Robert this time.
Correct.
Okay. So here's the question for everybody, but Robert, for you first, what do you view as important attributes of a successful council member?
What do I see as the successful attributes of a council member?
The important attributes of a successful council member.
Yeah. Well, I believe part of that is that human relationship, understanding the public, but I also believe that part of that requires a little bit of that understanding of how policy works, an understanding of how it's the judicial branch and that it doesn't have unlimited powers. I think that part of that also is understanding that the relationship between our advisory committees, our executive branch, understanding the limits of what the city council can and cannot do, our intergovernmental and interjurisdictional agreements. These agreements and these methods are what create good policy and most importantly, how we budget our policy. And so I think that understanding the structure, understanding the history of that structure, understanding the interconnectedness across the community of getting policy done is the successful route, I believe.
Thank you, Robert. Amna, it's the same question. What would you view as important attributes of a successful council member?
For me, to be a successful council member, my approach is very simple and clear. He or she has to be a people's person. The approach to its people is something that's very, very important. If my people do not know me, or if I'm not addressing their issues, then I think I'm not doing my duty right. And the other important thing is, as Robert has mentioned, we should know our limits. What is the executive team, how the council operate, what are the policies, what are the trends that we have to follow, what is the judicial system that we have to follow. And as a council member, one person cannot do anything. It has to be a team. If 7 council members are sitting and making a difference, then that's a difference. I will not be able to make a difference all by myself. So it's all about people for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amna. Kelsey, it's the same question. Important characteristics of a successful council member.
Great, thank you. I think it's really important that a council member be curious. You guys have such a broad body of work that you're engaging in, that curiosity to understand how things work and why they work the way they do, what the history of any specific initiative or issue is, understanding that is going to be really important. I also think it's really critical that council members seek to understand, reach out to the community to solicit a variety of opinions, to understand the various sides or perspectives on any given issue. I think, and Amna really put this well, but I think the collaborative nature is really critical. Given the form of government, she's exactly right. I mean, you don't do anything by yourself, and really the only way that you're going to be able to move things forward is by building coalitions, by collaborating, by bringing colleagues along with you if you want to get something done. So that's really critical. And then I'll say, I think it's really important to be measured and respectful in your engagement with community members, in your reactions to things. I've been to and or watched a whole lot of city council meetings at this point, and feedback is not always offered in the most pleasant manner, and it's not always offered in the nicest manner. But as representatives of the entire community, it is your job, would be our job to be thoughtful, to be respectful, to be, I think respectful really kind of sums it up. And lastly, I'll just say practicality is important. As an entity that runs a lot of utilities and provides a lot of very basic and critical services, you have to understand practically how things are going to look on the ground.
Thank you, Kelsey. And Carol, what do you view as important attributes of a successful council member?
Thank you. Well, I think I agree with what I've heard from my from fellow participants here. Basically doing your homework, taking the time to really understand the issues because they are complex. So seeking information from a number of different sources, not always relying on the same, narrow group of people or the same internet sources or whatever you refer to. Just getting a lot of information so you have the best, so you're as well informed as possible. Excuse me. And of course, you have opportunities to hear from people when you have public hearings and so forth. I think, a real desire to do to do the work. I think you need to be really committed. I think that's important. Even have a passion for it. I mean, I use that word, but I think it's important to bring that because you're much more engaged when you really feel that you have a stake or you understand the importance of the issues that you're dealing with and how they affect people. So I just think that personal commitment and gathering of information, and of course being respectful, because without saying, working with your colleagues in a constructive manner, trying to keep the ball moving forward, because everybody has goals, everybody has things they want to see happen. So trying to be measured and thoughtful and just trying to make progress.
Thank you all very much. So our next question will come from Councilmember Madrone, and we will be starting with Amna.
All right. So over the period of this appointment, the City Council will be completing the 10-year update to Olympia's comprehensive plan. We are required to plan for population growth with an additional 20,000 residents joining our community by 2045. How would you incorporate equity in planning for the future growth of our community? How would you incorporate equity in planning for the future growth of our community?
I personally believe, again, equity and inclusion is, again, very, very important. And probably by providing more jobs or working with the stakeholders at a local level and involving the organizations and working together can make a difference, I personally think. And I believe that Olympia Comprehensive Plan, they concentrate mainly on a public input and collaboration with various stakeholders and are essential components of the policy and developing process. So in my opinion, it's a long way to go, but how we provided the same facilities for everyone is by bringing with the local and different organizations to provide them the equal opportunities that can be done for all. At this point, that's my opinion.
Would you like me to repeat the question? Great.
I'm not used to the microphone yet. I think it's important to remember that while there are a whole lot of things that we do, equity needs to be the way that we engage in all of that work, whether it's the comprehensive plan or it's some other policy measure. I was really encouraged recently to hear the conversation around tweaking the equity form that you guys were using, because I think that represents or signifies that you're really using it, that it's being engaged, that you're finding what works and what doesn't work, and how do we continue to improve on this. I think as we look toward managing growth in the community, that comprehensive plan process is one of the most critical documents in terms of planning for the community's future. And so we really need to be considering, how do we make sure that the benefits of growth are shared equitably across the community and mitigate any harm that may be caused, and to always be looking for where that might occur, right? Looking for the unintended consequences, because I think oftentimes that's what we see in terms of harm in planning processes. So getting in front of that, thinking through, what do the changes that we're contemplating look like on the ground? What do these changes mean for communities across groups across our community? Different neighborhoods, different organizations, different folks in every corner of the community. So I think that, again, I'll just go back to equity and justice need to be centered and core to all of the work of the council, regardless whether it's comprehensive plan or any other initiative.
Would you like me to repeat the question? So over the period of this appointment, the City Council will be completing the 10-year update to Olympia's comprehensive plan. We are required to plan for population growth, with an additional 20,000 residents joining our community by 2045. How would you incorporate equity in planning for the future growth of our community?
Okay, that's, well, it's a complicated question, complex question. There's equity in the participation of the comp plan. There's equity, as was mentioned, in terms of the effects of growth on various populations. Equity in terms of where various populations will live in the city. So it's complex. I think outreach, first of all, participation in the comp plan update. There needs to be outreach to the various populations, identified populations, so that their input is incorporated in the comp plan. Growing, adding a lot of people is a dynamic process, and it's going to have effects that we can't, some positive, some negative, and different people are going to have different reactions, to that growth. I'm not sure that various populations have they're not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not uniform. There are individuals within equity groups, and those individuals have different opinions. So I wouldn't treat all groups as if they're the monolith is the word I was looking for. They're not a monolith, Some are, so I think you just have to play it by ear to, make sure you do the outreach, make sure you collect the input and everything else, and then develop the best policies you can. And, one thing, I think we're all aware of this, you can't, there are hazards, for example, of siting apartment buildings next to freeways in terms of public health, that kind of thing. But that isn't good for anybody. But of course, people who are less advantaged will be more affected because they'll be paying, can't afford better accommodations. So, so you have to reach a solution that works for everyone.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah. Wish I was like that all the time. Yeah. We are integrating equity and climate into all the chapters of the comprehensive plan update. I've been notified about this last summer. I had a conversation with Joyce Phillips about this. I think that's a great start. But I believe that we can adopt stronger strategic planning in our comprehensive plan by looking at our budgetary practices, because that'll be the other thing we have to worry about in the next couple of years. By systemic improvements. So for example, some of our sub-area plans, triangle sub-area plan, maybe our neighborhood centers, which is akin to a 15-minute neighborhood plan, those plans should include in our equity clause to look at who are the people who are going to be in these new neighborhoods, who are going to be in this new development, especially as we're looking at stronger urban practices and land use that can create a tax-positive mixed-use districts. So when we build these neighborhoods, when we build the new triangle in the next 20 years, if we start building these neighborhood centers, we really have to consider, are these going to be local businesses? Who are the identity of these people being here? Are they going to be of a certain income or a certain background? So when we look at those plans that are in the process now, and we look at that data, we should study that data and use it as an example of when we start looking at our comprehensive plan.
Thank you all very much. So we will move on to our next question, which will come from Councilmember Cooper, and we will be starting back with Kelsey.
Okay, great. The climate crisis is often positioned as a conflict with housing development or economic development. How do you think the city can best combat how do you think the city can best combat that conflict? Do you want me to just do it again? Okay. I provide the levity here. The climate crisis is often positioned as in conflict with housing development or economic development. How do you think the city can best combat that conflict?
I think that's an interesting dichotomy that you've set up there. And perhaps for me, it's never seemed that way. And so I'm kind of noodling on what that looks like exactly. Very early in my career, one of my first jobs, I met this woman who made a presentation at like an economic development thing in Seattle, and she was touting the idea of brilliant solutions, that green plus, green as in environmental plus, I don't know why she called them blue, but blue was like business solutions, could produce something even better. That there was a way to approach, whether it's housing development or economic development, in a manner that would further all those goals. And I think going back to what I mentioned about equity, I think that there are two things to consider. There's the philosophy under which you operate, and there's the tactics that you use to solve problems. And I think the philosophy under which this council operates and has operated for a long time is very much focused on what is the environmental impact of the things that we're doing. How do we mitigate that environmental impact? And while the details of that have shifted over time, whether it's carbon reduction or it's clean and green or whatnot, the philosophy is the same. And so I think that we always need to be thinking creatively and innovatively around how do we, from a tactical approach, get to the goals that we've set as a council while staying true to our values and to our philosophies, which would include doing everything that we can to mitigate the climate crisis, focusing on what we can get done here at home that'll make a big difference, because I think there are lots of opportunities there.
Can you repeat it? Okay. The climate crisis is often positioned as in conflict with housing development or economic development. How do you think the city can best combat that conflict?
Well, I think there's no question that mitigating climate is going to be expensive. So that's something I think we all have to realize and be realistic about. I'm very bullish on climate mitigation and wanting to lower our, meet our targets and so forth as soon as we can, because the sooner you deal with it, the better off we will all be. But it's going to be very expensive. So I think, I don't have an easy solution, and I just don't. I think well, we have to start with some rather large projects like the grid, for example, bringing that up, getting rid of coal, which we are on schedule to do, which is great. As far as housing development, I don't really, well, the issue there, of course, is whether to have insulated houses that are built green. You can go really far in that direction, or you can go to a place that's not quite perfection, I mean, there's something called a passive house, which has no emissions at all, and that's great, but that's stringent. So what you want to do is have something called a pretty good house, I mean, you want to get to a point where you're dealing with the I don't want to say the low-hanging fruit, but things that are less expensive, and that's why I mentioned insulation and weatherization, because that really, although there is some expense there, you're not having to deal with, I mean, it's a fairly straightforward way of reducing carbon emissions. So might as well start there and then take each consecutive step as they come up.
Yeah, I got it. As you pointed out, when we're dealing with climate, we have two parts here. We have our climate mitigation planning, which is our intergovernmental and interjurisdictional climate committees, the inlet restoration possibly, or the current estuary restoration, but that also includes the second part, which is our impact reduction, right? That's what you're talking about with the fact that the two largest carbon polluters in the county are transportation and housing. And so in order to square that with the high cost of rent, the high cost of buying a house nowadays, these very large systemic things, we're going to have to work really hard to plan out our neighborhoods and our communities in a way that we have different types of modeling for owning homes, ways for people to go from renting a home to buying their home, ways to, in the next few years, work to expand the accessibility, because we don't have the time for climate change. We also don't have that backlog of housing that we have a shortage of. And so in a lot of ways, the city council is very limited in what it can do with that, especially we've done some incredible things in the last few years with reducing our parking minimums, with the home fund, other projects, right? We've looked at ways that we can get around managing rent without doing rent control because of the state laws. And so in a lot of ways, I do think that there's a lot we can learn from other cities and other governments that are going through the same growth. And so there's a lot of shared knowledge there. So I think the solution is going to have to be more grants funding from larger government, from the state, for the federal government. But I also think it's going to require shared information and working together with our partners throughout the Puget Sound.
The city definitely plays a pivotal role in leading and facilitating these efforts. I would like to highlight a few things that we have to assess, identify the vulnerable areas in population that are more at risk to climate impacts, such as sea level rise, extreme heat, or flooding. On the other hand, we can create and enforce policies, foster collaborations. We can address the affordable housing issues, working and implementing policies that promote affordable housing options and address the homelessness within the community. And if we address the economic development and job creation, collaborate with local business and organizations to stimulate economic growth, attract new industries, and create job opportunities. Environmental sustainability is something that is very, very important. Advocate for and support initiatives that promote environmental sustainability, such as green infrastructure projects, renewable energy programs, and waste reduction efforts. We can address these issues again by working together, making policies, fostering up the relationships. For the climate change, there is always now climate models and data to understand future climate scenarios and their potential impact on the community. Again, the roundtables are needed to bring the people together to address those issues as how, as a team, we can address these issues together. Thank you.
Okay. So your next couple of questions, your next two questions will come from our Mayor Pro Tem, Nguyen. Starting with Carol Richmond.
Wonderful. And we're about a halfway point, so it's a good time to take a deep breath, and everyone looks great and is doing well. That's a good place to be. So my question is around equity and budget. The question is, how do you see decisions around equity and the alignment of the city's goal playing out in the budget? What approaches should we take to really turn the tide?
Equity in the budget. Well, an issue that, I sort of have to break down that term equity because it covers a lot of different people and population sectors. And I think an important way to deal with the budget and equity is to look at children as a population, as a subpopulation. There are a lot of poor children. I mean, our poverty rate is higher than the national average. And it's something that I wanted to add to my goals if I were to become a council member, to reduce that rate, because it has to be a priority. I mean, people who are poor can't really wait, in line for different things, other things to happen. So children are I think a significant percentage of the poor population, and their mothers, single mothers, that kind of thing. So, and I have to say, I don't really know how the problem is handled currently. I mean, I know that there are resources and facilities and that there are resources for that sector of the population. I know the Parks Department is doing a lot for children. But just making sure that no child goes hungry, that kind of thing, that everyone has, that poor children have an opportunity for enrichment, childcare, preschool, that kind of thing. And I think that gives all children a level playing field. They're starting out from a level place. So that's one part of equity, only one, but I think it's an important one.
Thank you. Robert, I'm going to repeat the question. It's as much as for you as it's for me. So how do you see decisions around equity and the alignment of the city's goal playing out in the budget? What approaches should we take to really turn the tide?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting intersection that we're doing here. So I think that the city has two main primary responsibilities when it comes to the budget, right? That's your main basic services, your utilities, your streets, your fire department, city staff, so forth, right? And then there are the issues that residents demand we respond to, the things that are outside of the traditional norms, right? That's walkability, that's access, safety concerns, so on and so forth, rent, mental health, the environment. So I think that Olympia has an important role in developing policies that create equitable outputs and outcomes, right? And so some of that is very basic level. That is community events. That is allowing people to know that we have the various cultures that make up our community, right? But beyond that, I think that we have to expand our outreach efforts to communicate with groups and individuals who either have suffered from systemic racial, cultural, or social inequity, right? These are folks that are last spoken. And the reason why I think that they should be crucial to our budgeting process, moving it from the demands to the norm, is that as we go through our budgeting process, we should do what we're gonna do with our comprehensive plan and move equity into the process as the starting place. And I think that also expands to our agreements with our tribal neighbors, the sovereign governments, whose nations that land we occupy. But I also think that includes supporting BIPOC businesses that are taxpayers, that provide for the community, that help with the budget through their taxes. And so I think those are the places that we really should start at.
Thank you. Amna, how do you see decisions around equity and the alignment of the city's goal playing out in the budget? And what approaches should we take to really turn the tide?
Thank you very much. I think we should have a comprehensive plan that should have the equal opportunities provided to all. Whatever the pre-existing structure we have for budgeting and to enhance equity, more policies should be made a collateral. There should be a collateral partnership between the organization, the local groups, or the private sector, so people are well informed and they're able to participate, and the city can allocate that budget to make that difference. I might not be very clear about it, but to my knowledge, it's something that can be worked together as a team, and if I become a council member, this is something to learn and to work on it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Kelsey, would you like the question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let's do it. So, Kelsey, how do you see decisions around equity and the alignment of the city's goal playing out in the budget, and what approaches should we take to really turn the tide?
At its core, equity breaks down to fair treatment and meaningful involvement. So I think that in particular, we need to focus on an equitable approach to developing the budget. Once we've gotten to a budget, that's kind of late to be asking the question of whether or not it's truly equitable. I'm not a person that has a mind for quotes, but I have heard many times something about, show me your budget and I'll tell you your priorities. So I think there is something real in how the budget reflects the ambition and the goals of the council. And I think that equity always needs to be part of that conversation. I think there also needs to be a realism around what does it take to serve folks in the community who may be most difficult to serve. And I think about this because of my background, particularly in the utility context. But without engaging directly, going back to the meaningful involvement piece, without engaging directly with folks who are, for one reason or another, more difficult to serve, you'll never know the right way to do it. You'll never know the right approach. You'll never have the information that you need to really inform that process. And so I think the city has made a lot of strides in terms of their outreach to the community and involving more folks from historically marginalized or underrepresented groups in both the planning process, not just related to the budget, but related to other things as well. And so I think that is an important step forward. I think a lot of good work has been done to turn that tide, and I hope that we will start to see more and more evidence that we're already heading in that direction. But I think continuing to ask the hard questions, continuing to engage in that process is going to be really important and meaningful moving forward.
Thank you. All right. So I have the next question, and that's going to go to Robert. And that question's around public safety. So I'm asking, how familiar are you with our work on reimagining public safety? And what are your priorities for public safety services in the community?
My understanding of public safety can both be part way of infrastructure and safety for people to cross the street safely, but that also includes our crisis response units. That includes our attempt to implement body cams and the funding needed for that. I believe that expanding the services in the next few years is going to be very important, particularly as this new public safety tax comes in, to ensure that our crisis response unit gets more people and methods along that line. Now, from an urban, like I said, from an urban planning perspective, I do think that safety can be not just response to a crisis or police cameras. It can be your ability to cross the street safely. It could be, is it safe enough for my kids, if I had kids in the future, working on that, be able to ride their bikes in the street and not have to worry about those things. So safety for a lot of people in Olympia is, their ability to participate in the public in a way, with the public in a way that they don't feel harm is going to come upon them. And so I believe that we've made strides by doing the crisis response unit. When I talked to my mom about this process, the Sydney, Ohio, where she lives, they don't have anything remotely close to that, and they have the same crisis that we're going through. And so I think that we've made good strides there, and I think we should continue down that path.
Thank you. I hope we do. Amna, would you like me to read the question?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So the question is, how familiar are you with our work on reimagining public safety? And what are your priorities for public safety services in the community?
Thank you very much. The public safety, I think, one of the most important thing in any city. We have to create the safe spaces in the city. We have to work together with the transportation department. For example, if you're talking about the bus stops, I personally think the bus stops are the places which we should provide more security on a local level with our Olympia Police Department and with the city. People who are walking, people who are on the sidewalks, safe spaces for the religious areas that we have, that is very, very important. Olympia has probably 3 to 5 big religious centers that are always feel very unsafe and are always very threatened. I think on a city level, we should collaborate with the local organizations as well as the police departments to provide that safety for its residents. I personally think, in my opinion, I would like, when my child is going in the morning to the bus stop, there should be some surveillance, because children come together and then they walk through. So the transportation department can play an important role in the public safety. Safe spaces and safe places for the city is very, very important through collaborations.
Thank you. Kelsey, how familiar are you with our work on reimagining public safety, and what are your priorities for public safety services in the community?
I'm quite familiar with it, and I suppose I'd start off by saying, as an Olympian, I'm really proud of the work that the council and the city has engaged in already. I think the Reimagining Public Safety report was a pretty remarkable body of work and was really innovative and forward-thinking, and represents another way that Olympia is leading its peers on difficult subjects. In terms of what I would prioritize or like to see more of, I think that you can never go overboard with building trust in the community, in and with the community, and I think that's a big part of this work. I think that the auditor is going to be a big part of that and be really impactful in terms of moving that dial. I also think the Community Oversight Board is going to be really, really useful in that process of building trust in the community. I think it's also critical, as was acknowledged in this plan, so I'm not telling you anything you aren't very familiar with, but to make sure that law enforcement officers are providing services that they actually have the expertise to provide, and not asking them to kind of meet the broad needs of whatever might ill the community at that time. So I think that work is underway, and we've seen some really great progress on that. I also think that this is an interesting time to be having that conversation as we're headed into the January community meetings, and the survey that's going to be done in February. I think the survey work the city's been doing is also really, really useful to have that data to really inform the decisions and where you take these efforts next. But I think it's going well, more work to be done. Building trust should always be front and center. And I'm excited to see what's next.
Thank you. Carol, How familiar are you with our work on reimagining public safety, and what are your priorities for public safety services in the community?
I am not familiar with your work on public safety, so I have to start there. I assume you're talking about transportation, or are you talking about a broader range of safety issues? Or simply, or?
Well, just quickly, the reimagining public safety is, well, a broad planning document on a lot of things, but I would love to hear your priorities for public safety services generally in the community.
Sure. Well, in terms of transportation, then I think that pedestrians are still at risk, at risk of encountering vehicles. Bicyclists are also at risk. And part of that has to do with the way our roads are built, and also not having the space, for enough space for cyclists and pedestrians. I personally had a close call. I was in my car, and it was nighttime. It was in the wintertime when it's dark most of the time, and it was somebody in dark clothing, was crossing the street, and I saw them just in time. But it's the kind of thing that probably happens over and over again. So I think having those well-lit pedestrian crosswalks is really important, those flashing lights. Just having those everywhere would be good. Another part of public safety is the perception that people have of the lack of safety downtown. I mean, you hear that a lot from people about they're afraid of being assaulted or afraid of, I'm not sure what. But I think mostly, I think the homeless, there was a lot of concern with the homeless situation, which appears to have been resolved to some extent. I'm not seeing as many homeless downtown, so I'm not sure. But I think dealing with that perception is really important because people don't come downtown because of it. They have this perception that it's dangerous. And so we're not getting the benefit of their visits and shopping and so forth. So that would be another issue, is dealing with the perception as well as the reality.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Can I just add one thing or just say something?
We're, I believe, just looking around to my, okay. If you would like to use your time in another question, you can.
Thank you.
All right, so I have your final question for the evening, and we will start with Amna. So, what are you most eager about to learn, and why?
Thank you so much, Mayor Dante. I will answer your question. I just want to add a quick thing. As we were talking about the public safety, I just wanted to let the council know that on a private level through our Rotary Club, we made a crossed section, a crossroad for the children in the school, so they can cross the road without getting into the traffic. It's called a traffic circle, and the same model maybe we can apply in the city to make it in the school. That's one of the models that everybody wanted to adapt, and we recently made it in 3 months ago in one of the schools. Sorry if your question is that what do I want to learn being a council member? Again, I would say being a woman of color, being the only Muslim sitting here in this room, I want to be the voice. I want to be the voice for the people who are not on the table. I want to be somebody who can speak for somebody and make the problems on the table that I hear through my community or through my residents to the council. I want to learn from the other council members how to work in collaboration, how to have the community engagement, to learn about the policies, data. Something which is very close to my heart, which I would like to work, is the hate crime, which I personally think is on rise. This is the time that we move forward as a city and bring people on the table, make community engagements, the dialogue, foster relationship between the different organizations which are either never heard of or we don't know about them, address those issues and bring them on the table. To move forward, the only way forward is the community engagement, and I would like to learn from all the six people sitting in front of me who have the experience and can lead me through the way if I make it up to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kelsey, what are you most eager to learn and why?
Well, I've come to this conversation with a lot of background in utilities and in municipal operations. I feel steeped in policy. I spend a lot of time talking about transportation and economic development and housing. And I'm realizing that while Olympia is certainly a leader in the arts and culture space, that's somewhere that I don't have a lot of experience, which is made a little more funny by the fact that I doorbelled my whole neighborhood for the arts initiative. So fully endorsed, but the details, I don't know. So that's really an area that I'd like to dig into more. I've seen, bits and pieces of efforts around the armory and the museum and, a variety of different things, but that's an area that is not my core wheelhouse or area of expertise, but something the city does really well and something I'd like to learn a lot more about.
Thank you very much. Carol, what are you most eager to learn and why?
Well, I think I need to learn. I guess I'm eager to learn, but not necessarily in a joyful way, let's say. Finance, how the budget works, and really making the city run, on just all the bits and all the pieces of the city. So I just need to learn a lot more about that. I feel like I just don't have enough background. And those are really important decisions. As you said, the budget expresses your values. So, but again, it's one of those topics that can be a little dry, So there are a lot of things I want to learn. I have a lot to learn, always, so.
Thank you. And Robert, what are you most eager to learn and why?
I'm eager to learn about what policies could be created on the interjurisdictional level, right? The Thurston County CRPC, and various other intergovernmental agencies. I'm very interested in seeing, what ways are problems that we're dealing with now when we reach those aha moments, those policies that we're not really clear on yet, right? I have spent a lot of time learning about urban planning and a lot of time learning about the various aspects of that. But, I really do think that I could gain to learn more about ways in which that intersects with other policies. So, the question about budget and equity, I really do think that equity isn't always brought up when it comes to urban planning, right? Most people who cycle are white male, right? That's a problem. That's a deficit that we have, right? I think that thinking about where these chapters in our comprehensive plan meet, right? Ways in which we can meet one solution while trying to think about another problem. Those are the things I'm very much interested in, especially as we work from a local level with a limited budget.
Thank you, Robert. So that concludes our questions for this evening. So congratulations, you've made it through the first iteration of your interview. But at this particular time, we'd like to offer you this opportunity to give us 2 minutes of closing comments, and we will start with Amna. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I start with Amna before? So I will be starting with Kelsey. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. I've really appreciated the opportunity to engage around these issues. All of them are important. Thank you guys, my colleagues here. I think Olympia's in good hands. And you guys have a tough choice to make, but I've been really heartened by this entire process, and so have really appreciated being able to be a part of it. I do believe that my perspective and my experience, both around local government operations and utility services, will make me an effective partner for you as we continue to deliver core utility and municipal services and lead on things like carbon reduction and climate planning. I really have a passion for meeting the housing needs of our community, and I'm very eager to help engage more partners in this work, to move projects forward, and to maintain a sense of urgency as long as is necessary to solve this problem. My existing connections to partner jurisdictions and critical organizations across our community will bring more ideas and solutions to the table and will allow me to hit the ground running as your council partner. I do believe that I'm the right partner for you, for your continued work to build a future for our entire community that we can all be proud of. And I hope you'll give me an opportunity to get to work. Thank you.
Carol.
Thank you. Thank you. So in closing, I feel that I'm ready to take this step. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Because I do have a long background in policy and also with the Planning Commission. And a lot of what the council is going to be dealing with in the next 2 years is the update to the comp plan, as well as the planning for the Capital Triangle sub-area. And those are issues that I'm very excited about and would love to participate in. So as my planning term comes to an end, I'm looking for the next thing, and this happened at the right time. So I would be, and this allows me to answer the question that I didn't answer, when we started this. But so I think I have a lot to offer, and I don't know what else to say. Yeah, it would be a privilege. It would be an incredible privilege and honor to serve with this group of council members and to serve the city of Olympia, which is going through some very exciting changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Robert?
Yeah, I would also like to thank everyone else for coming out tonight. The city council, the staff, I mean, it's getting late, for their time and opportunity, for my time and opportunity to be interviewed. If I'm chosen, my priority in the next 2 years will hit the ground running with a fresh perspective, with an idea of clear understanding of city policy and priority-based budgeting, comprehensive planning and policy. I do have the experience of working with the staff on BPAC and in-state projects at LNI and support services. I do have an educational background specifically designed to legislate and advocate for the public. I am looking forward to any opportunity there will be, either now or in the future, to work with the community at large. If I'm not selected, I will continue to work what I can for the community. And so I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. This process is also new to me, that I'm really overwhelmed, and at so many ways I was like speechless. But I personally think, in my opinion, I am a people's person. I have been involved on a local level or with lots of organization doing work to make a difference. I believe in a positive impact in the community, in the society, in the city that I'm living in. I have been living in Olympia for the last 3 years, and I've been involved in lots of causes. Serving on the city council will provide me a platform to advocate for these matters and work that can bring the change to the city. And again, I cannot do this all by myself. With the help of the city council and with the city members, the only thing that can make a difference is when you work together. So I personally think if I am the chosen one, I would look forward to work with my mates, learn from them, and give them my experience and see if I can make a difference. Thank you very much.
Now you're done. Thank you all very much for your time again this evening. So any comments from council? Okay, so at this time, we will recess the meeting and we will go into executive session to evaluate the qualifications of each of you who are here this evening. So no decisions will be made, and the meeting is expected to last no longer than about 15 minutes. Okay. And then we'll be returning here to cast our votes. So.
Did you say 1-5 or 5-0?
1-5, 15. 1-5. Oh no, not 50.
Can I ask that we have a 30-minute time
You would like
frame
30
in
minutes?
case we, and then that way we don't need to come back out and ask for more.
Okay, that's fine. 30 minutes, no longer than 30 minutes.
30 minutes of recess? Oh.
No longer than.
Yeah. Just a break.
Yes. Okay. Yes. You can go ahead and get up, and Kelly will take you to room 224. Okay. All right, so at this time, we will recess, and we will reconvene in 30 minutes. No longer than 30 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we will be extending our time in executive session, but first I will be calling for a 5-minute recess, followed by another additional executive session that will last no longer than 30 minutes in room 112. Okay, so we are now back in session. So I would like to call forward Jack Mongan to go over our ballot process just one more time for us.
Thank you, Mayor Payne. So to go over the ballots, we should all have one ballot in front of us. Because of the two candidates that did drop out today, they are still on your ballot. We're just asking you to cross through their names because we will not be voting on them. So for the 4 candidates that were interviewed, you'll be ranking them first, second, third, and fourth for your preference. So you should be ranking each of those 4 candidates. You should only have 1 first preference, 1 second, so on and so forth for third and fourth. Once you have completed your ballot and you have printed your name at the top, once we're all done, everybody's done, your ballots are going to be brought over to me. Depends how you want to do it. If you want to bring it over one at a time, otherwise I can collect them. And then at that point, I'll be reading the results of those ballots. We'll be entering into the spreadsheet, the tabulation spreadsheet that will be on the screen shortly. And after that point, we will look at the results and see if any further rounds of the ranked choice voting will need to occur, where any candidates are removed. Is there any questions I can answer?
I actually do have a question. Is there a preference for how we mark it on the ballot? Check marks, fill in the bubble, anything specific?
Yeah. I did not bring my voter intent guide with me.
Oh, does it? I don't.
Yeah,
it just says. Oh, fill in.
Point of order.
Sorry.
The mayor has many things to juggle tonight.
Thank you.
To be clear, it says fill in one place and X in another place, so it's not just you, Mayor Payne.
Thank you.
Yes. The nice thing about not having a secret ballot is if I have any clarifying questions, I can ask them.
Okay, City Manager Bernie.
Staff just had a question about, the candidates are currently up in 224. Are you comfortable with them being down here and being able to witness this process? It's an open public meeting. I don't think they need to stay up there.
Could we vote first? Like, vote
Whatever you
and
wanna
then
do,
turn
I
it
just wanna
over
check.
and then
Vote and
allow
then
them to
come
come
in.
in?
Yes.
Because it feels a little,
Sure. After the
We
first
are
round.
going to have our votes recorded publicly on the screen by name, so.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm requesting that we make our votes, not cast our ballots, but make our votes, flip our pages over, and then invite them into the room. But I'll go with the body.
Can I get some sort of indication that we're all good with that? Thumbs up? All right, so that's fine by us. All right, so I will go ahead and open the voting process. All right, so looks like we're all finished. So one by one, starting. Oh, yes, we'll have our candidates come into the room before we cast our ballots into the box.
Would you like me to approach and then collect the ballots once the candidates are here?
We'll go ahead and cast it. So we'll go ahead and one by one, I'll call each council member over to cast it into the box. All right, well, welcome back, candidates. Thank you so much for your patience and for waiting upstairs. So just so you have a sense of where we are, we just filled in our ballots and we'll now be casting them into the ballot box over there to the table just to your right behind you. So we will go ahead, beginning with Councilmember Cooper. Councilmember Parsley. Councilmember Gilman. Councilmember Madrone. Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen. And for the record, Mayor Payne. Okay, so at this time, voting is now closed. So while we are waiting for results, I just wanted to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to each one of you for coming forward and in this process. It's not easy. Obviously, you came forward at a very, very, what I said in my remarks last week, tumultuous time in politics. And despite that fact, you want to be here. And so that says something about yourselves. We all appreciate the time that you've taken to fill out the application, to interview, all of the work, the studying and reviewing and engagement that you've done to get to this point tonight is commendable. And so I want to recognize that and thank you for your time and best of luck to each one of you. And
all right, to begin the counting of the votes. Voter's name is Dante Payne. For first choice, we have Kelsey Hulse. For second choice, we have Robert Vanderpool. For third choice, we have Carol Richmond. And for fourth choice, we have Amna Quasi. Kelsey. For N. Huyn's ballot, for first choice, we have Robert Vanderpool. For second choice, we have Kelsey Hulse. For third choice, we have Carol Richmond. And for fourth choice, we have Amna Quasi. For Danny Madrone, for first choice, we have Kelsey Hulse. For second choice, we have Robert Vanderpool. For third choice, we have Amna Quasi. And for fourth choice, we have Carol Richmond. For voter Clark Gilman, for first choice, we have Robert Vanderpool. For second choice, we have Carol Richmond. For third choice, we have Kelsey Hulse. And for fourth choice, we have Amna Quasi. For voter's name, Lisa Parsley. For first choice, we have Kelsey Hulse. For second choice, we have Robert Vanderpool. For third choice, we have Carol Richmond. And for fourth choice, we have Amna Kwasi. For voters named Jim, we have first choice, we have Robert Vanderpool. For second choice, we have Kelsey Holz. For third choice, we have Carol Richmond. And for fourth choice, we have Amna Kwasi. All right, as a verification that everything was entered correctly, Chris, would you be able to read me back those votes?
So for Dante Payne, we have from top to bottom, 1, 4, 3, 2. For Yen Huynh, we have from top to bottom, 2, 4, 3, 1. For Danny Madrone, from top to bottom, we have 1, 3, 4, 2. For Clark Gilman, we have 3, 4, 2, 1. For Lisa Parsley, we have 1, 4, 3, 2. And for Jim Cooper, we have 2, 4, 3, 1.
All right, so in the first round of voting, we have two candidates that are tied. So at this time, we're going to be removing the candidate that has the least amount of votes using the average votes that you see up there where the cursor is. So with this, we would be...
Sorry, yeah, so we need to remove, right, so the highest number. So these two candidates are, neither of them got first choices, so they're the ones that we're going to be looking at to eliminate. We're using the largest tiebreaker value to eliminate on a first. Let's see.
This is one of those interesting situations where
Right.
ranked choice voting with small groups can
Right.
sometimes produce ties.
Actually, right, so, yes, these two are completely not in consideration, sorry. So, the tiebreaker value would eliminate Kelsey and Robert Vanderpool would be the winner in this case because of the tiebreaker value being lower, which showing the more support. So as you guys said, you know, we're giving you the results, and you can decide. You still have to vote as to how you want to go with that. So the way we would do that then is we transfer a -3 on that one and a +3 on this one. So in the next round, you end up with 0 and 6.
Okay. So I'll try explaining the way the averages work, and of course, if there's any questions at all, I can answer them. So when we have tiebreakers in these situations, basically we need a way to break that tie. And what we do is we give each candidate basically a ranking based on how each voting member ranked that candidate. So even though there is 2 people that got 3 first choice votes, if you take the totals, not just the first place, but for the candidates who may have ranked them second or third, and you add up that total for them, one of those candidates has 9 total, and one of those candidates has 10 total. which means as you, the voting members, even though there's a tie, all of you together, there's one candidate that was ranked higher than the other.
But I don't get the part at the bottom, the 0 and the 6.
Your mic,
So-
Councilmember Madrone. Your mic. Yeah.
So it's just showing that if you actually eliminate, then Robert is the winner, right? Because you are eliminating Kelsey.
So because Kelsey has a ranking of 10 and Robert has a ranking of 9, Robert has a greater preference among the voter body. So if you have that tie between them that you're breaking, basically Robert would continue on because he has a higher preference amongst the voting members.
So if we had had the more rounds, you would have seen these numbers progress farther along, but it is the very last round, and we are just showing that Robert is the winner.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? All right, well, at this time, we will move into executive session for no longer than 15 minutes to discuss the qualifications of the final two candidates. We will meet in room 112 for up to 15 minutes. Okay, so we are back. And with that, I need a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem Nguyen.
I will move to appoint Robert Vanderpool as council position 6.
Second.
All those in favor of appointing Robert Vanderpool to Olympia City Council position number 6 signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. Yeah. Hold on. That's tomorrow night. Okay, so with no further business before the Olympia City Council, we're adjourned.